Lizette Offley is coming in. She's a cognitive hypnotherapist, and we'll talk to her about phobias in just a short while here at BBC Radio Oxford. It's said that nearly 1 in 75,000 people are known to suffer from a phobia. Not any old phobia, a phobia of buttons. Fern Cotton, who's a DJ, she says I'm beyond petrified, says Fern, of dry sponge and foam. Now, bearing in mind she's a DJ, and normally sponge and foam is what a microphone's pop shield is made out of. That's pretty tough. Apparently, Johnny Depp and Daniel Radcliffe are fearful of clowns. I'm intrigued by this button thing, though. Let's speak to Lizette Offley. She's a cognitive hypnotherapist and teacher from Henley. Lizette, good afternoon to you.
Hello, nice to talk to you.
Yeah, they say that it was Steve Jobs' phobia was so severe that he invented the touch screen to avoid buttons.
And wearing polo necks.
Yeah, well, indeed. I mean, can we laugh at people who are scared of buttons, or is that just cruel?
Well, it demonstrates a lack of understanding, because after all, other people's phobias always seem hilarious. But as soon as you get a phobia yourself, it's a different matter.
Yeah, but why particularly buttons? I mean, buttons aren't harmful, are they?
It's to do with how the phobia is born. A phobia is a learnt response. We're not born with phobias. In fact, there are only two fears we're born with. One is of falling, and the other is of loud noises. If you watch a baby being startled by a loud noise, you can see that right there. So all other phobias are learnt responses.
Right, so none of them are hardwired then?
That's correct.
Okay.
That's correct. So it means if you've learnt to be afraid of a particular thing, you can easily learn something different, i.e. not to be afraid of it. It's a way of keeping you safe. Your unconscious mind is doing it. It happens automatically. And your unconscious mind is there to make sense of the world and keep you safe. And it makes decisions on your behalf all the time, whether you're aware of those decisions or not. So in a situation where a phobia is born, the unconscious mind is trying to keep you away from a perceived source of danger. So it's a good system, but, sometimes it makes mistakes.
Yeah, there is a kind of a logic to it, but there are, like a fear of heights, because obviously falling is not good for you. A fear of snakes, because if they bite you, well, you could die. But there are some that are just appear to be completely irrational.
Yeah. And really, a phobia is when something is becoming debilitating. It's stopping you getting on with your life in some way. I mean, for example, if you're quite young and you're bitten by a dog, it would be very sensible to have a healthy respect for the sharp end of the dog in the future.
Yeah, sure.
But when that translates into crossing the road to avoid an oncoming dog on a lead, or never leaving the house in case you bump into a dog, well, then that's when we say it's affecting your life. And how it starts is really interesting, because your unconscious mind is making those decisions all the time. It can fixate on something. So if it's a dog, then it's obvious. That dog has bitten me. That's the source of danger. But sometimes when the unconscious mind can't see what the source of danger is, it has to make a decision and make sense of what's going on in that moment. So, for example, look, here's a way to describe it. You're 4 years old and you're climbing the stairs with Mummy to go to bed. Suddenly, Mum gets halfway up the stairs and she goes absolutely ballistic, which is a shock and scary for the 4-year-old. And she's pointing at a spider on the stairs. And so the likelihood is that the child recognises that Mum is frightened of the spider, and that might be the end of it. Or the child might take on the attitude, same as Mum, that the spider is the source of danger, because after all, she's pointing at it. Yeah. And Mum knows everything when you're 4.
Yeah, similar.
That could be the phobia.
Yeah, because I took he was then 14, my great nephew on holiday, and his dad doesn't like flying. But when I got Thomas on the plane, he's like, "Oh, I don't really like flying." But I'm like, "Oh, I love it." And I'm like, "Oh, hey, here we go." And it was pretty jolly. And he was fine after that.
Yes, it's about focus. And if your unconscious mind is doing that in order to keep you safe, then it feels like you haven't got any control over it. And if the source of danger, like the aeroplane or the dog or the spider, isn't immediately obvious, the unconscious mind still has to make sense of what's going on. So it will then cast around for something that equals danger. Oh, that must be it then.
Right.
And that's how you get a clown phobia or a button phobia, which is called kumpunophobia. They've all got names.
I won't ask you to spell it, don't worry.
They've all got names. And, of course, if it's your phobia, it's very important to know what the name is.
Now, there are two young ladies that work with me on the afternoon show. One is called Christina, one is called Georgie. We're in the office talking about phobias. Now, this, Lizette, is how my mind works. Because Christina looked at me and said, I'm scared of balloons.
Yeah.
Georgie said, oh, my nan's scared of balloons.
Yeah.
But I thought, balloons, eh? I must bring some in tomorrow.
Oh, no, really?
Is that so wrong
Right.
of me?
Well, that really would be unfortunate because it's not a laughing matter for them. Or at least for Georgie, it's her nan's problem.
Yeah.
But for Christina, that really would be unfeeling and unkind, and you could well really upset her.
Right.
If you were to find yourself, if somebody put you suddenly in the middle of the motorway and you were obliged to dodge traffic, you would not be impressed with the person who put you in that dangerous situation.
True, yeah.
And while it might be hilarious to you, that's how their body is going to respond. But it's the stress response that kicks in. And so you're going to have a very, very stressed and distressed person who is not going to thank you for it.
She has. Well, she's kind of conquered it as in a small way. She's still scared of balloons, but she says the thing is, I had to conquer it because I got kids, and they always want balloons for their parties.
Yeah.
So,
but the problem is there are some shows that make great TV. That imply that it's very, very painful to let go of the phobia, that people think it's better to keep the phobia than to contemplate the treatment. But actually, you don't have to put people in a room with the spider and have them suffer over and over and over again. That is one way to do it, but who on earth would want to do that?
Yeah, indeed.
And that's where the cognitive hypnotherapy comes in, because it's quick, it's painless, it's permanent. Why wouldn't you do it?
Are you scared of anything, by the way?
No.
Oh,
I don't
hang on.
like...
The way you said that means yes.
Well, okay. So scared wouldn't be the right word. I hate earthworms and slugs. Really, really detest them. And if I'm doing a bit of gardening once in a while and I come across something wriggling around on the ground, I'll react.
Right.
And then I'll compose myself and I'll get on with it. That's perhaps a bit of a fear, but it's definitely not a phobia because it's not stopping me doing in my life what I want to do.
No, fair
That's
enough.
when it becomes a phobia.
Listen, lovely to speak to you, Lizette. I must apologise for annoying Christina in the office before.
Oh.
I must also mention Simon in Curbridge as well. He's just called in, says he's also scared of balloons. And says it's the bang that gets him. So Simon, my apologies to you as well. And Lizette, I think you've told me off in the nicest possible way I've ever been told off before.
Don't do it again.
No, all right, I won't do. Thank you very much for joining us.
You're
That's
very welcome.
cognitive
Good to talk to you, Nick.
hypnotherapist Lizette Offley, who is from Henley.